Howdy. I'm Grey Pilgrim. Well, I had an idea for a video, and I thought you folks might like it. I'm going to talk about the world of 1914. Now, what happened in 1914? Well, the world was composed of the United States over here, but Europe was divided up into a whole bunch of different empires. I mean, there was Germany, which had just formed in 1870. In which Prussia had basically taken over the other smaller German states and become a country. There was France, which was a republic. There was the United Kingdom, which was a constitutional monarchy. And the UK had been under the control of Queen Victoria all through the end of the 19th century. I mean, she was queen until, I think, the year 1900. Well, what's important is she had a whole bunch of kids, and they had a bunch of kids. And basically, her kids married into all the other royalty of Europe. So the whole place was a bunch of family. Well, in this mix, the Emperor of Austro-Hungary had gotten rather old, and his son had died. So his nephew became the crown prince. And that guy's name was Franz Ferdinand. Well, he and his wife Sophie, who was a granddaughter of Queen Victoria, were visiting these new areas that they had just taken over because the Ottoman Balkan Wars had left a whole bunch of states down there free and independent, and the Austro-Hungarians thought, well, this can't be, so they went down and basically annexed them. And the main city down there was Sarajevo. And a bunch of people thought very little of the Austro-Hungarians taking them over, especially the country of Serbia. And they had a group called the Black Hand, and they had a bunch of these anarchist types there. And they said, hey, Franz Ferdinand's coming down to Sarajevo. Why don't you guys go out there and kill him? So they had a guy with a bomb, they had guys with guns, and they lined the parade route where Franz was going to ride by in an open carriage. And one of them tossed a grenade in, and he couldn't shoot or couldn't lob a grenade worth spit, and basically blew up the car behind Franz Ferdinand, killing a bunch of and hurting a lot of people. And that ended the parade right there. And instead of going on to the town council room or the civic center to give a speech, Franz Ferdinand said, no, let's go over to the hospital to to look at the wounded and deal with them. So he was on his way to do that, and his driver got lost. Well, one of those anarchists, a guy with a pistol, and the pistol was a 1910, I think, Browning in .380, and his name was Gavrilo Princip, and he went over to a sandwich shop and bought a sandwich because he said, well, everything is it's screwed up, we've got to regroup and figure out what to do. So as he's standing there in the sandwich shop, along comes the main carriage of Franz Ferdinand going the wrong way on a one-way street because the driver was unfamiliar with the town. And so they were slowly backing up, trying to back up out of the street, when they went right by that sandwich shop that Franz Ferdinand had just walked out of with a sandwich in his hand. They went, oh, this can't be happening, and reached in, grabbed his pistol, went bam, 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 and shot both Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie. Killed them both. And, you know, as people would say reading the New York Times, a popinjay, small, petty Central European crown prince, who cares? I went back to their coffee. Well, they cared. Because of this, Austro-Hungary declared war on Serbia. They had already had a secret agreement with Germany saying, if we go to war, will you back us? All of the countries were on the powder keg edge of having a war. Well, Kaiser Wilhelm, who was the head of Germany, was off near Sweden on a yacht doing some kind of vacation at the time when Franz Joseph and the Austro-Hungarians took a ship down and started shelling Belgrade, the capital of Serbia. Well, that lit it off. Suddenly, Germany thought, okay, well, now we have to do something. And they were worried about Russia because Russia was allied with Serbia. So they said, okay, we declare war on Russia. Well, Russia and France and England had the triple entente, and Germany, Austro-Hungary, and Italy had the triple alliance, meaning, these negotiations. Well, so everybody starts attacking everybody else. Well, that takes a while because in 1914 you couldn't just push a button and set things off. You had plans already made up. Germany had a plan called the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan called for go through the Low Countries and into France, take Paris, negotiate peace. By then, the mighty Russian Empire will have got together its troops and started heading towards you, because they figured Russia would be a little bit slow. So the Germans attacked France first, even though they declared war on Russia. And they did it by going through Belgium. Well, the Schlieffen plans had a timetable, get down here at this point, get across this river at that point. And they thought, well, once we have our army has taken France, then we can move them east and take Russia. Didn't work out like that because they sort of kind of got stopped in Belgium. And the British had their expeditionary force in Europe, and they were fighting with the French against the Germans. And, let's see, did I remember that one? I don't remember. No, I didn't. Okay. Anyway, and that's where my story takes off. I'm going to talk about the different combatants in this war from the perspective of their sidearms. And this is the first one, going east to west. This is an 1895 Nagant. This was the standard Russian sidearm in 1914. Any officer in the Tsar's army would have one of these. Pretty interesting pistol. It could do a lot of interesting things. I'm not sure what Serbia was armed with. They didn't matter in the war. I mean, their army was sort of rolled over rather quickly. But the Austro-Hungarians, well, first of all, the Russians did attack into Germany. They took East Prussia, or about half of East Prussia. Then they got stomped. But the von Schlieffen plan didn't work, unfortunately, because the whole thing was based on a concept of get it all done before Christmas. Didn't work out. Well, so they're moving over towards the west. Well, Italy at the same time is dealing with Austro-Hungary to the north. And Austro-Hungary, they're armed with two weapons. This, which is a 1912 Steyerhahn, this is the army pistol of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And this, the 1907 Rothsteyr, which is the navy pistol of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Brutal trigger on this thing. Okay, as they're defending themselves in the mountains of the Alps between Italy and the Austro-Hungarians are coming back. Excuse me. The Italians are using. Well, I don't have one. They used the 1910 Beretta. I don't have a 1910 Beretta. I have a 1935. It's a smaller version of this. Open on the top, single action, but a solid pistol. This was the standard pistol of World War II of the Italians. Well, so here's the Italians and the Austro-Hungarians, and they're having the 12 battles of the Isonzo River. There were 12 battles. I mean, they kept attacking and retreating and defending and attacking and retreating and defending 12 times, and really never accomplished anything. Anyway, meanwhile, while that's going on, the Russians have pounded their way through the Low Countries and into parts of France. Well, the BEF, the British Expeditionary Force, and the French are fighting them, and the Germans are stopped, and the Allies are stopped. They look at each other and think, what do we do? They started digging trenches. And they went, okay, well, if we just go off to the west, we can get around them. So both the Germans and the Allies were doing this. and it was called the Battle of the Race to the Sea, in which they just kept trying to do that, and they got all the way to the Atlantic Ocean and made a trench that went from there basically over to Switzerland. The whole thing was an entrenched line the whole way. Well, the French, they did not have a very good pistol. They had they had this. This is the 1892 French service revolver. It's in 8mm. It's a beautiful revolver, but they didn't have enough of them. So they put out a call to anybody and everybody, give us your pistols, we'll buy them no matter what. Well, two of the great arms dealers of all time, one was the ones in Spain. They came up with a Ruby. This is a Spanish-made pistol, but it was the standard pistol of the French army. Though they ran out of these, and they had called for more. And another secondary standard that they had was this. The 1907 and the 1917 Savage. Those were American pistols, but a whole bunch of them ended up in the trenches. Oh, by the way, the Germans were using this, a Luger. So that's just an example of what they were trying to fight the Schlieffen Plan with. Well, about 1917, this war had been dragging on for a while, and finally America got attacked. The Lusitania got sunk, and a bunch of other things. Wilson really did his best to get us into the war, even though he won on a ticket that said he kept us out of war. Well, he did for a while, but he wanted us in war. He wanted that. He wanted the Federal Reserve, and he wanted the gold standard basically abolished, and a bunch of other changes. But anyway, I don't have what we were armed with, which was the 1911 Colt automatic. I have this is a Colt Commander. This is a modern recreation of it. But this was also used by Americans at that time in 45 ACP. And we ran out of these. So we started coming up with other things. And they went and had Smith & Wesson and Colt both make a version of this, the 1917, which was a massively large revolver chambered in 45 ACP. Wonderful thing. You had to use moon clips to use it with the rimless 45, but worked like a champ. Well, anyway, in the end, 1918, November, the armistice was signed, and the whole thing came to a crushing end, which is a good thing because America was prepping for the spring offensive of 1919. They were going to use the Peterson device, which was an add-on to the 1903 or 1917 Enfield and Springfields, to basically make them submachine guns. The whole idea was walking fire through no man's land. Stupid. It would have gotten thousands and thousands killed. But they didn't know back then. Anyway, they signed a peace treaty, or an armistice, and that was the end of that. And here we have the world that was left to us by the survivors of that conflict. Well, anyway, I just thought I would show the various pistols that were used, or some of them that were used in World War I. There were a lot of other 32s being used. There were some other pistols, some other revolvers. The Montengrin was used down in what became Yugoslavia. The Italians also used the Glicenti, which was basically a thing chambered in 9mm, but it was made out of really poor metal, and it tended to blow up if you shot a full power 9mm parabellum through it. So you had to do a lesser powered shell through that thing. Unfortunately, guns from Italy that were chambered in 9mm Glicenti, most of them ended up being used with 9mm parabellum, and most of them blew up. So the Glicenti and others like it, and the Ballister Molina submachine gun, which was also chambered in it, they become rather rare now because, well, most of them blew up. Anyway, So there are a lot of weapons that came out of World War One. I mean, that's the thing about war is human innovation creates lots of weapons. So anyway, I just thought you'd find that of some interest. If you like it, well, like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And if you leave a comment, let me know what you think. Just sitting around and thinking about this and thought, well, I like history, but I like to babble about history. But I like to babble in a way that is not as boring as the guys I knew when I was in school. Let me know if I succeeded in that. Happy trails.